Hello, everybody. Thank you all for joining this session today. We have got a pretty interesting topic today, which is exciting for most of our customers as well as all the marketers out there, which is how to build a solid lead generation strategy, right? And so I have the we have today a very a company which is focused on the adventure travel. They are LeadSquared customers and have graciously agreed to talk about how they went about building a lead generation strategy for their business. Both of them are young entrepreneurs, and I'm really thankful that we could have them here on our session and to talk about about their business a little bit and how they went about putting this thing together. So let me quickly do a quick introduction here. So we've got Siddhant Dhingra. He is the founder and chief marketing officer of Great Wide Open, and Ashish Dhar, who is the founder and director of Great Wide Open. So the business name I think is K2K Travel. And so thank you both, Siddhant, Ashish. You guys there?
Yeah, we are here.
Awesome. So yeah, before I sort of go into the the webinar details and we start talking about the whole thing, could you take like a couple of minutes to Ashish and Siddhant to sort of talk about how you came together? Your young entrepreneurs left your corporate careers and started off this venture a couple of years back. So what transpired? I mean, how did you guys get together? I think a little story on that would be interesting for people to know, because I think entrepreneurship is in the air, at least in Bangalore. Would love to know a little bit about that, and then maybe we can sort of dive in. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be happy to do that. So Siddhant and I, we go back to college. We were in the same hostel, and ever since we graduated from college, we started traveling in the Himalayas and primarily trekking.
Okay.
And it was really a passion that that kept us going every year. And on one of these treks, we figured that there is something that we could also do in terms of doing something close to our hearts. But that was like the seed of the idea, and that just kept us. It was just there. And one fine day, just suddenly happened that we decided that enough is enough, and we should take a leap of faith and start something on our own. And we could think of nothing better other than adventure travel, because that is what we were really passionate about. So we started nurturing the idea, and we came up with this marketplace model, which we thought was really the answer to a lot of gaps in this industry as such. So I'll just hand it over to Siddhant to put in his 2 cents.
Good afternoon, everyone. Nilesh, thanks for calling us young, because that's
you're a young man. The photo looks young.
So I think Ashish has got it pretty much, the way it was, and so he just gave me a call one day from Dubai, and he said, "Look, it's time for us to do something. Are you in?" And I didn't even, we didn't have a plan. I didn't even know what he was going to talk about, so I just said, yes, yeah, sure. And I was getting married at the time, so he said, okay, you go ahead and sort yourself out, and we'll talk in a month or two. And in the meanwhile, he conceptualized the idea. We really didn't have a proper, idea of exactly how we were going to go about it. But the best part about entrepreneurship is, as you go along the way, you do a lot, and you learn a lot along the way. So we sort of, we conceptualized in November as to the fact that we wanted to do a marketplace type of thing. And it's grown from there ever since. And so it's been an interesting journey, and a part of it which, we're going to share with you today as well.
Yeah. Well, thank you. This is very exciting, and I'll tell you why. Because a lot of entrepreneurs start with a lot of energy, right? And what you typically see and we see as a business, because we are in the we had an opportunity just because of our business model that we talked to a lot of entrepreneurs. The lead generation, is the crux of the problem for all the people who start the businesses, right? Or rather, most of the businesses struggle with this idea of lead generation. And I think since you have done it, you have started off from ground zero, from a concept level, and build the business idea around it. At the same time, it's no more an idea. You went ahead and executed that with the plan and figured out the lead generation model. I think is something which is and I'm very excited to hear about that today. And so I believe all our audience will also be equally excited. So I won't let further wait, and I'll give you the control here to start talking about this exciting journey you are on, and for the benefit of our audience. So here you go. Can you?
Thank you, Nilesh.
Okay, cool. You got it. Okay.
Yeah. So I guess all of us can see the screen that we're sharing.
Yep, I can. Yep.
All right. Anyway, this is a formal good afternoon now. Now that we've begun the presentation, and first of all, we want to thank Nilesh and the LeadSquared for inviting us here, and to give us an opportunity to share our thoughts. So like Nilesh just mentioned, we are a startup in travel space, and we run an online adventure travel marketplace, which is known by the name of Great Wide Open. And you can check us out at www.greatwideopen.in. Like I just mentioned, we are a couple of years old into this business. And we were primarily travelers ourselves, and people who wanted to do something close to our hearts. So on this in this journey of ours, when we began 2 years back, we really had we were like all younger entrepreneurs. We were quite hopeful of things falling in place right from the start. But very early on in the journey, we realized that there is a lot of stuff to do. There is a lot of stuff to learn on the way, and only then would things actually start to work. So in the beginning, we relied heavily on Facebook and Google and other online means for generating business, and we spent a lot of money doing so, because at that time we did not have much organic traffic coming our way as well, because we were very new. In due time, what happened was that we started getting a lot of following on Facebook, because it didn't take us much time. One of the reasons for that was also because we were in a space which is exciting inherently by nature. Someone looks at a beautiful picture of the Himalayas, chances are that they would engage with you as opposed to just move on. So our product was special, and we started getting a lot of following on Facebook, and we started getting a lot of likes on the posts, and so we kind of built a small community, and we were quite happy with that. But what happened was that whenever we posted something, we realized that a lot of people had interacted with the post, and but we were not getting any results in terms of money coming in, right? So that was something that we needed to fix. And we realized very early on that if we do not do something about getting the details of the customer who are getting interested in these things that we are posting online, there's just no point of doing all these things. So what we did was we explored the possibility of building landing pages and getting traffic to from just liking the posts to actually coming onto the landing page and sharing their details. And we used a platform which was quite competent to do that. Soon we ran into another problem, which was that after leaving the details, we had to kind of do the follow up and do the communication manually, and that itself was a huge challenge, because now we had started generating leads in hundreds. We had to send each communication individually, which was a huge issue. So then, one fine day we actually came across LeadSquared, which solved a lot of our problems. So, so this slide here we are talking about the basics of lead generation and what we think a CRM tool needs to have. So one of the things is that it should ensure lead capture, which is the most obvious point. Then the other problem that I just spoke about was in terms of automated email communication. If that is not there, then we are talking about sending hundreds of emails, or even if we are using some batch processing, even then we are stuck to the manual sending again. So that is a huge effort. Then the more subtle aspects of using a CRM include categorizing leads and lists, and being able to actually target the right customers and keep them engaged, even if you're not actually hard selling anything. Then there's increased synergy between team members, because if different people are selling the same stuff, there is a chance that you might have redundancy of communication with your customers, and you might be talking the same thing over and over again, which is something that would put off a lot of people. So there's increasing synergy because people know what the other person is doing. Then there's also the point of accuracy of data and insights, which Siddhant will talk about in the coming slides. And one very important point, which is data security, because you're not relying on Excel sheets and and standalone quiz and other stuff. You're actually you have a proper security in terms of data, and you have an interface that determines who will see what. So in an organization which is, if for example there's an intern which is working for you, if you have the proper data security, chances are that they won't go to your competitor and take away all those files and important customer details that you wouldn't want to be shared. So so that's the basics of lead generation. Coming to this webinar, I'll hand it over to Siddhant, and he'll take it further.
Yeah, all right. Good afternoon, everyone. So basically, the idea today is to give you a structure and a starting point of how to develop a kick-ass lead generation strategy for your business. It's not going to be so much about mentioning the types of lead generation strategies that are there, because you can read that stuff online. But basically, what we're doing is we're outlaying the journey that we have been through in terms of how we've actually had to figure it out the hard way of picking up on how we should put together a decent lead generation strategy. We're breaking this down into 3 phases. Basically, lead phase, where you determine exactly who to target. The lead phase, where you determine how you're going to target the people you've identified. And the post-lead phase, where we'll give a short note on exactly how you can use the data after your first sales cycle is completed. So basically, the note here would be to use this as a starting point to define your lead generation process, to give the process structure, and embark on a journey of basically iterative improvements until you finally get it right. And so we take it from there. So in the pre-lead generation phase, as mentioned earlier, before you go out, bonus with all these wonderful offers that you have, and how your product or service is going to revolutionize the life of the customer, you first need to understand who your customer is. And we tend to have a very broad idea of who the customer is when we either get into the business or we are hired into a business, whichever position you're in. But whether it is a B2B or a B2C, your success will lie in terms of identifying a homogeneous set of customers who are experiencing a similar problem and are willing to pay you a similar amount of money to avail the service that you are providing. So basically, there will be some unifying parameter amongst all, diverse though they may appear, that actually hooks them on basically to your product or service. And the key here is to actually identify that. When you get into business, as I said earlier on, you tend to think you have a good idea of the customer, and what you do is you design your campaign and you head straight into execution. And it doesn't matter, because especially in a market like India, there's such a big population, and it doesn't, even if your targeting is way off, you would still get some degree of response and you think that your campaign is actually working. But the fact is that at this very point, 2 fundamental errors have already been made, which we also made at during our starting time. And one is that you don't bother to verify whether you're looking at is right. And the second is that you don't get into specifics and you remain broad leveled in terms of your definition of your target segment. And a lot of marketers tend to justify that this by saying that if you over-segment your, your target audience will become too small. But what we're going to do is we're going to just use a small, simple example here to show that that is not true, and these two things really need to get into play. So we'll take a small example of a bakery store in Delhi. They've been operational for almost 20 years now, and they've been doing a great job in terms of products, and they've their score here in Delhi in terms of birthday cakes as such. Store. And they've decided now that they'd hired a couple of motorbikes and wanted to do deliveries across the city. So they would take their business online and try to market it that way. So the primary segment, they figured that everyone in Delhi, is going to have a birthday at some point or another. And our basic criteria is because we are targeting them online, that they should be able to pay online. So the criteria here is that we're limiting to ourselves the city of Delhi. And ages 21 and above, which is what you expect to have, the type of person you would expect to have a credit card. In terms of determining where the demand is coming from, they naturally assume that if someone's having a birthday, so a cake could be required, and that's where the demand is coming. But the fact is that there is a differentiation that takes place at this point itself. And that brings us to the question as to who the customer actually is. So in this case, the person who is the customer is not actually the customer, but he's the end user of the product. The actual customer in this case would be someone who is associated to that person. He might be a friend or more likely to be a family member. And if someone is having a birthday, it is more likely, 99% of the times, that is it's the friends or associates who are actually buying the birthday cake. So in terms of targeting in this case, you would want to understand that the customer is not someone who is having the birthday, but is an associate. And since the product in this case has a life cycle of, shelf life of around 3 to 4 days, so the order would probably get generated within a week of, the actual event actually taking place. So now we have an audience, a target audience, who are friends and family of a person who is having a birthday within a week. So you can see the level of specifics that you can get into when you're doing your segmentation, and accordingly the efficiency of how you're marketing yourself. Let's take an example that this particular this particular scenario is being marketed on Facebook. So now if you are doing the general marketing which was done earlier on, you would look at Delhi only and people who are the age of 21 and above. But because you've tried to identify who the end user is and who the actual customer is, now you will be able to target people on an all India basis, because you're not losing out cash in that way, because your ad will only be shown to people relevant to the which is that friends and family of people connected to someone who is having a birthday within a week's time. So that way only the relevant audience will be seeing the particular ad that you're putting out there, and they'll be seeing it only at a relevant time, as opposed to a bombardment of everyone who's probably online in Delhi on Facebook. So you can see the benefits that would accrue immediately in terms of saving of time and saving of money when you get into specifics of how you want to do your segmentation. So just in summary of what we've just said, identifying, in most cases the customer and the end user are usually the same, but if you actually get down and ask the question to yourself, you will know that there is a difference between like in this case we've just mentioned, simple though it may be, it is that there's a difference between the end user and the customer. The benefit that is being accrued by your offering to the customer, and the timing, which again in this case we have seen that was of the essence. In terms of not only relevance of the ad being put out there, but in terms of cost savings as well. And because of the relevance of the number of the leads that you will be picking up will be very high quality leads, and the chances of conversion increase accordingly. The other options as well, as we've mentioned here, you could pick up on data, which is pretty typical to your marketing otherwise as well, in terms of demographics, location, socioeconomic factors, and understanding of what channels are being used by the customer to access your content for that matter. So when it comes to us, we had, go ahead. our own troubles in terms of when we had started out for the adventure travel space, and we basically we were starting out. We don't have much of an idea exactly how segmentation is supposed to be done. So our initial idea was that we are going to be selling to adventure travelers because those going to be, that's typically logically what's going to be our customers. But that was actually not the case, and we soon realized that despite the fact that we said, okay, we're going to be marketing to adventure travelers, no one is actually walking around with a board around their neck saying that, oh, I'm in traveler. So now we had to actually figure out how we were going to target these people. So for us, it was a good thing that we were adventure travelers ourselves, and what we chose as our starting point was, that we would begin to self-profile ourselves. So we basically looked at ourselves. We said we're both engineers, and we were 23 when we started, trekking, and we're close to 30 now. Well, then when we started the business. And so it would be safe to assume that, techies might like this, and, that the age that we would start off initially targeting would be 23 to 30. We lived in metro cities, and during our journeys, we had only encountered, at least in majority, encountered people from metro cities only who had come for these journeys. So we figured the potential adventure traveler lied in the metro city itself. And other than common interest in adventure, of course, we figured that another common interest that we had was, rock and roll music, since most rock fans also tend to be a little bit rebellious in nature, so to speak. It would be an acceptable proxy to understand that, a potential customer might be extrovert in nature and had a fairly good likelihood of coming on a trip like this. So this was basically the script we took, and we went out and launched our campaign. Now, a common mistake that most people would make, and we made one ourselves here as well, was that we didn't go out there and do primary market research. We figured we've self-profiled, and that should be enough. And luckily for us, we weren't too far off again from the target customer. But it's always a good idea to go out there and actually speak to customers. Don't outsource the process. Do it yourself, especially if you're an entrepreneur, and go out and get insights from customers and figure out whether whether your idea is actually going to work, and whether you're going to hit the right people or not. So after we ran our first campaign, we pretty much we got a couple of leads generated, and customers started converting, because I suppose there was a lot of likelihood with the product as well. But we had now we started to generate a lot of leads, and we needed to figure out a little bit more about who the customer was and why they were buying from us exactly. So we went through a very painful process in the start of what we'd like to call cyber prowling. And that is basically what we did was, we had about a list of, I would say, around 200 people who had shown interest, some of a good number of which who had already converted with us, and who we had classified in our primary target as a lead customer. So, and most of our leads at that point in time had been generated from Facebook, because it's one of the easiest, platforms on which you can market. There's a lot of flexibility that Facebook offers to you in terms of segmentation as well. So, the main task we took up here was that which kind of, got mundane after a while, was that we went to each individual's profile and listed down the likes and interests that they had put. And we tried to find some commonality between all the 200, customers that we had set out to investigate, so to speak. And of which we got a fairly decent 70% of public profiles. And we found, although there was a couple of insights there, but the most significant one that we had found was that almost 70% of the people who had shown interest in our services for going for an adventure travel trip had actually liked the Royal Enfield motorcycle. So this was a new area of interest, a new parameter that we could include in our future campaigns in terms of targeting, and that's something we did. Post which we decided that we'd engage some of the converted customers as well, speak to them and understand exactly how, why it is they took up this trip, and what their experience was earlier to that. And we realized over our conversations that a very large number, close to above 75% of these people had not undertaken an adventure trip before this. And basically they were first timers. So our market, the target market in mind had started to change. We had only catered to around 15 to 20% adventure travelers, and 80% of the market was actually first timers. So now our segment jumped from becoming a niche adventure travel market to the entire recreational travel market as such. And my product or service in this case was now a substitute for regular travel as opposed to a niche type of product that we were trying to offer earlier on. And after this insight, you can imagine that our perceptions had changed. We had a direction in terms of which way we wanted to take the business, what kind of leads we wanted to generate it, and we had an idea of how we wanted to start positioning ourselves now. Earlier on, we were just running campaigns and moving from there, but now we had a decent idea as to exactly how we want to get the first timers. That was the market, and that's what we wanted to pull. So all in all, just to summarize, the idea here is to get into specifics, find, validate, incorporate, iterate your, your findings. Ask yourself over and over who the customer is, validate that, develop a persona of this customer, and target him. To identify the homogeneous group, as I said earlier on, that there's a diversity in terms of segment. But you're looking to identify the homogeneous group of people who will form the bulk of your customer base, and who will be in terms of lead customers, means the type of people who will share your business with other people. They will refer you, they will be repeat customers, and they're in a position to influence other people to actually come and try your product or services. The benefits, as I mentioned earlier on, in terms of saving time, money, and a lot of duplicate effort that would take place if you were to manage your lead generation in this manner. I'll just hand it over to Ashish now, who will take you through the targeting process.
Thank you. So we'll just talk about a little bit about the mediums or the channels that are existing where we can look for lead generation. So this is a pretty obvious slide, but nevertheless we will just touch upon it. So basically we've classified it into three broad categories: online, offline, and referral. And we are mostly speaking about non-organic leads here, because everyone knows, we're assuming everyone knows about SEO and the importance of having good traffic to your website, which is basically free. So when we online, we are talking about stuff like Facebook, Google, search and display networks both. We're talking about StumbleUpon, and they have this tool called the paid discovery tool. We're talking about YouTube, Pinterest, and we're talking about other such social media, maybe Twitter, although it's not that big in India in terms of your business as such. It's more about politics. But yeah, I mean, it is one more potential that you have. In the offline mode, we have stuff which is more not too mainstream. And how it is cost effective, whether it is college festivals or you have music and theater, you have coffee shops, there could be allied businesses. For example, for us, we can look at being outdoor adventure travel products. We can look at people who are into fitness. So gyms are allied businesses where we can sort of tie up and get leads from there. And of course magazines, for us travel magazines, for someone else it might be lifestyle magazines, so like that. Referral is the potent channels through which leads are generated, whether we talk about personal referrals through friends and through previous customers, or just basically spreading the word of mouth through offers. Just to mention a few offers that we run. So we have three broad categories of offers. One is called the early bird offer, which is to promote, to encourage people to actually book trips with us and reach a minimum group size so that it is viable for the operator to run the trip. Then we offer called the free ride offer, which is quite interesting, and which is broadly under this referral category, where we offer free trips to people who can bring a certain number of friends along with them. So it turns out to be like a discount, but it's a much more positive way of saying it and a much more attractive proposition for the customer. And we have something else which is called the Venture Out Challenge, where basically we offer a cashback, a 50% cashback or even more on certain trips for people who come back from the trip and actually write about their experiences, make videos and share photographs. So basically, you know, it's a win-win situation for both. Moving on to the next slide, we are talking about the sales cycle. So just as a you know, as a side comment, one of the advantages of having an MBA graduate as a co-founder is that you learn you learn a lot about a lot of fancy stuff about marketing.
Yeah, that's a good point. Go on.
Yeah. So Siddhant, he introduced this this theory of IDA, which I think is very you know, very pertinent here. So in a sales cycle, we're talking about 4 different steps in a customer's mind. So one is attention, the next is interest, the third is decision, and the fourth is action, which leads to conversion. So in a typical scenario, wherever a customer is exposed to information from the marketer, the information should be able to hold or to get their attention. That is the first step. The second step, of course, is the interest, if it generates enough interest or not. The third and probably the most time-consuming for most businesses is the decision-making process, where you know, the consumer takes their time depending on what services or products he's considering. And after the decision-making process is over, which is aided by a lot of interaction with the marketer and the seller, and only after that the conversion happens. In most cases, like I mentioned, this process is spread over a length of time. But there are certain products and certain deals where all this is compressed to a very short time. Like, for example, if you were to visit like a Snapdeal and you see a camera being offered for 50% of the market value, that is something that you would, you know, immediately that would catch your attention and you generate enough interest. And because it wouldn't be a huge investment as well, you could take an instant decision and you know, just on the spur of the moment you would buy the camera. So while that may not be a possibility for all scenarios and all kinds of products, but the endeavor of a marketer should be to actually compress this and move towards the scenario where decision making is compressed as much as possible. So basically, if you're looking at it from a theoretical point of view, the focus has to be in hastening the decision making of the customer. And one of the most important factors in aiding the decision making is your conversations with the customer. So here in this slide, what we've mentioned is from the pre-selling to the post-selling mode, we have different kinds of conversations with the customer, starting from professional yet easygoing and friendly, where you're not really hard selling any product and you're you know, trying to inform the customer, and slowly getting into you know, the proper selling mode where you're creating an impression of scarcity, like, you know, there's just limited inventory or limited stock available, and that they should actually try and buy the product as soon as possible. And to other attributes of this conversation, like you know, honesty. You should you know, come across as a very honest salesman and not trying to dupe the customer, which is a very obvious point. And after the selling is done, taking the feedback and, you know, understanding more about this would go a long way to actually, you know, have a clear understanding of what the customer is really, you know, understanding of what prompted the sale and what their feedback is after availing the services. So this helps us improve our product as well, and at the same time helps us sell better to future customers, because now we know a little bit more about the customers than we knew before. Now, the process we follow while interacting with the customer starts from an advertisement or just a simple visit to the landing page, followed by registering on the page, which automated email with all the necessary details of the trip that we are marketing. So I'm just talking about how we interact with the customer to give you an idea of how you could replicate that, or whatever the good points exist in this framework, you could replicate in your own business. So basically, after the automated email, we provide. So in the landing page, we provide an optional field for customers to leave their phone numbers for us to call back, and we call those who leave their numbers. So why we keep this as optional is because we don't want to lose any leads just because a visitor was insecure about sharing their numbers. So by keeping this arrangement, we have we found that 70% of the visitors who leave their details are okay with sharing their numbers also. So it's a good deal for us. Even without making it compulsory, people tend to leave behind their numbers. And so for this phone call, time is very important. As in, if we don't make that first call within 2 to 3 days of generating the lead, we often find that the customer has lost the initial enthusiasm for the trip that had actually prompted the filling of the form in the first place. So the first call is only a courtesy call, during which not much about the actual trust, because most people have not gone through the details also by then. And in a good number of cases, the email has actually gone to their spam folder. So this is a good reminder and a way to ensure high email open rates. So there are some users who have already checked out their details also. So these are the users who typically have a lot of questions right in the first call. And these are the people who are most likely to convert, and we need to keep a special focus on them all throughout the campaign. Now this brings me to a very important exercise in the phone calling process. That is dividing the leads into likely, unlikely, and neutral, so to speak. So this is a very important exercise because this paves the way for us to utilize the time that we've allocated for follow-ups much more efficiently and for greater returns. Also, this is very important to record the gist of all conversations. So when we are actually talking to them, we should have a frame of reference for our next conversation. And whenever we are getting started with the subsequent calls, it is always better to link it somehow to the previous conversation. For example, if you know that a customer was not well, it is always a great way to start with start the next call with how are you feeling now, and hope you're feeling better and all that. So basically, there's a personal connect, and the customer also responds better. Now, other than that, there are two other important points that I want to mention here, which probably everyone is aware of, but these are so simple that a lot of times they may be ignored. One is visual and textual aids for recall, like having adequate branding on the page, the right acknowledgement messages and pop-ups, and adding a bit of humor. So basically anything that would make the customer remember the product or service they got interested in and not act when we call. Secondly, we need to create a feeling of scarcity, like I mentioned earlier, and hasten the decision-making process before things like bosses and leaves and meetings come in the way of their decision. So that's a little bit about interaction. Now, conversion is dependent on various factors. For simplicity, we've categorized them into 5 C's, which are listed in the slide. The first one is clarity, clarity about the product, which means that you should have complete command over the nitty-gritty of the product and what difference it would make to the life of the customer. Second is communication, which should be precise, clear, and timely, and one should not miss deadlines with the customer, and this goes a long way in making a positive impact on the customer's decision-making. Third is credibility, which is that the customer should see you as an expert, someone who's tried the product before him, and one they can trust with informing them about it. And there is nothing like being perceived as an honest salesperson by the customer. The fourth is content. You should look at creating as much high quality content as possible, and let do the maximum talking for you. And last but not the least is the context, which is being aware of what is going on around the world and use it as a form of backdrop to your selling. For example, if there are floods happening somewhere, we avoid mentioning rivers. So that's a simple case there. Now, the types of content we've categorized into, by ownership and by type. By ownership, you're talking about first-party content, which is content that we ourselves create as marketers, whether it is videos or pictures or just writing about our products. Second-party content is content created by your vendors, if that is, if that is the kind of scenario your business is in, or your customers. So that is also very valuable content because it is the next best thing to doing it yourself. And of course, there's third-party content available, as long as it's copyright free and as long as it's shareable. In the event that you don't have enough resources to create your own content or have the arrangement with the customers, then you can rely on third-party content. By type, the classification is quite simple: text, textual, which is basically text; visual, images; and audio-visual, which is videos. So in our journey, what we've learned is while using content for engaging customers, the best way to go about is actually going first with the visual content, because images attract the maximum attention online. And if you have striking images of your product or your services, something that clearly indicates or clearly communicates the value that your service or product is offering, then that is the best way to generate that initial interest in your product. So visual followed by audio visual, because so just to give you an example, when we market our trips, go with the image, generate interest, and then lead them onto the landing page, which is again quite striking visually because we use a lot of beautiful pictures as the background. And if possible, we also use videos there, because at that stage the customer has developed significant interest that they would actually have the patience to go through the video. And when they go through the video, then we can also give them details about, give them write-ups and give them, links to blogs or whatever. So that is the ideal progression that has worked for us. Although it may differ from industry to industry, but I think that at a broad level, visual to audiovisual to textual would hold good for a great majority. Now, when we are using content to generate leads, we need to take care of a few things. So the first point here is we should talk about a specific product. So if I have for example, we have a website, and if I use my content and my pictures and videos to invite visitors to the website, that is hardly going to work, because people might appreciate the website and they'll just go back. But it is always desirable to use content to speak about a specific product rather than about the company or the website or the product range. So unless you're making the product clear, only interest would be generated and no leads. Second point is weaving a story. In that the content should engage the audience by telling them a story and getting them to ask what happens next. Even with the most technically sound content, if it is not able to relate to the message, it will be all useless. The third point here is short and crisp. That is, the content should be short and crisp, especially for online visitors, because they have huge attention issues, and which is not surprising at all, because you have sites like Facebook and YouTube who are competing for their attention. So whatever you have to say, you should be able to say it in the first few seconds. And if the first few seconds are vague, you will lose their attention and not be able to deliver a clear message. Then we're talking about capturing details, because with good content, you've created sufficient interest and excitement. And if the customer has to wonder how to ask a simple question or how to get in touch with you, or even just has the room to delay his decision of getting in touch, then you have lost the battle, because then you're leaving it up to him, and after a few hours itself, they will lose that interest. So it is very important that you make it simple for him, and preferably as simple as a click. The next is client speak, which is basically saying that getting customers or testimonials to speak for you. So this is especially effective for videos, where a simple endorsement by a previous client can work wonders for the confidence of the potential customers to place their trust in you. And last but not least, we're talking about visually striking content, which I mentioned. The most stupid way to lose a customer is turning them off by exposing them to poor quality images, or making spelling mistakes in the text and all that. Because it is safe to say that having no content is better than having bad content. Now, this is an interesting topic, especially for people who've just started with the process of generating leads for their business. And purchasing leads is always a temptation among marketers, and there's good reason for that, because there's hardly any effort required, and you just pay that amount, and people get names and addresses and phone numbers of people to contact. But sadly, in a lot of scenarios, it does not work. The only benefit, like I mentioned, is that the purchased leads offer you, you don't have to move a finger to get that list. But once you start working on the list, it often turns out that you have to make 5 times or 10 times the effort to just make a connect with the customer at an intellectual or an emotional level, because the reason is that the customer face recognizes you and treats you as an intruder. Now with generated leads, the story is different, because the quality of leads is great, and it's a function of your own efforts. So you save a lot of money by avoiding the premium charges on paid leads, and you have complete control over the kind of leads that you generate by virtue of applying precise segmentation and targeting that Siddhant was mentioning earlier. Now this entire process of lead generation and engagement with the customer, each step has certain benefits associated. So in any profit-making enterprise, the success of the business is determined by how much money it makes, which is obviously a direct function of the sales. Lead generation ultimates with this top-level success, but each stage of the process has a smaller degree of success inbuilt in it. The first step is obviously traffic, and as we saw earlier, it's sufficient. If sufficient interest is generated, people register on the landing page. At this stage, even when someone does not register, there is still a large number of people who remember the product, and there is always a chance that they will come back and look for something else in the future. So the next step is interaction with the customer, and at this stage, regardless of the decision it takes ultimately, we as marketers surely enhance our understanding of the customer and use this to improve the customer persona that Siddhant was mentioning earlier. Next is conversation. But again, even if the customer is not willing to pay for this particular product or service, it is also an opportunity for us to sell something else that may interest them more. Finally, coming to the conversion part, after the customer has paid, the opportunity to get referral business presents itself before us, and that comes in way of additional sales. So we see that at each stage there is a takeaway for the seller. So one should, we've learned is that we never get bogged down by in case one of our products gets low conversion rates, because there is always something that to be taken out from this whole process of engaging the customer. So we've spoken about a few positives and the process as such. We also thought we'll share some things that did not work for us. First and foremost, like I just mentioned, purchasing leads was something that just did not work. Another feature of Facebook, which we thought had had great potential, is Facebook events for us, because we are primarily, when we're talking about our fixed departure trips, they are actually events. And but we've done that in such a way that there's hardly any room for marketeers to actually engage with the customer. So that is something that has a lot of potential, but Facebook is not is not building on it. So that's something that never worked. Then having separate mailing and separate landing pages was also something that did not work for us, as I mentioned earlier, because the sheer effort involved in sending mails in batches manually was quite a bit of ask. and after integrating the two, landing page and mailing, a lot of efficiency was built into our system, and we saw immediate results after that. Another thing that did not work was so initially we thought that after people register on the landing page, we should give them some time to go through the content, and then we should give them a call. But that never worked, because by the time we called them, they had forgotten about the product. So we realized that the gap between someone's sharing their details and us making that first call should be minimal. I mean, ideally it should happen on the same day. If not the same day, then at least within 24 hours. And finally, Excel managed follow-up that we tried doing in the beginning, but as the number of leads grew, it was something that gave us a lot of trouble. So, Excel would not do for something which is exceeding 100 customers at a given time. Now I'll talk a little bit about allied strategies for generating leads. These are basic stuff, offers which I spoke about earlier. Each business has different types of offers depending on the kind of customers we are dealing with. Then there's newsletters and mailing lists, which is perhaps not a bad idea still, although a lot of mail providers like Google, Gmail and all, they have separated out the promotional mails from the inbox. But again, I mean, it is still not so bad. But yeah, it has been on a decline. You can't compare it with the early 2000s. But yeah, this is still something that does work for a lot of people. Building a community is the third point which I want to mention. Now this is real hard work, because here you are actually engaging with the customers and encouraging them to speak with each other also. So that is something that takes a lot of time, but gives the maximum returns. For example, if we arrange a trip, we put the necessary platforms like groups on Facebook, or having them on mailing lists or Google groups, to be able to communicate even after the trip is over, so that sometime later they might want to do another trip with the same group, because the kind of bonds that they form on these trips are sometimes lifelong. And finally, the simplest strategy is of course referrals. Encouraging your customers to tell other people about their experiences, especially if they are positive experiences, and that is something that always works.
Yes. So I'll post the targeting part. I'll just take you through the data mining thing, which is basically just before you close your sales cycle for a particular campaign, and during actually. There are certain steps that you can take that can ensure your future campaigns and future targeting to be much less, to require much less effort. And we've broken it down basically into two parts that we use ourselves. One is the data mining part, which is what we call the the proactive part, and the analytics part, which is the post-active part. So by proactive, I mean that basically you just need to be smart, and during your conversations with your typical lead customer, you identify him and say that yes, this is my typical lead, and I know he wants to travel, but he can't right now, or she can't right now, because of XYZ factors, influencing him. So instead of just cutting off the conversation there, that okay, writing him off, that cool, it's not working out. I would engage the guy to see exactly, where the possibility lies for him to travel. So, like for example, during a conversation, a certain gentleman says that I really wanted to come for this trip, but I'm not able to get leave right now. But I'm sure I'm going to be able to score 5 to 7 days in November. So I wish him well and put it down. I mean, end the conversation. But before turning that lead off, I immediately put him onto a list for customers that I would be targeting for November, and another list for, so basically the next time he had probably responded to a particular trip that I had put out there in a campaign. So I would immediately again put him on a second list for customers to target when that trip is going to be offered again later on. So just a proactive exercise by which you've already generated the lead. You've spent money in terms of marketing to acquire this lead. So there's no reason for you, to reinvest to acquire the same customer, or to spend any more money in acquiring this guy, because he's already there, part of your, part of your list, and you're in a position to understand exactly when the highest chance of conversion could take place, and take advantage of that. So one could look for patterns also from a particular campaign. If a threshold number of customers cannot make a current trip but have expressed that they would be able to do so, later in the year, you would then have a potential group of, customers already lined up, and would re-engage with the same set of customers later in the year, and the chances of conversion now are much better as compared to your earlier campaign. Another part is one can also use a lead management software to track where in the conversations you are and where the conversations closed off. So Ashish had mentioned earlier on that if you're breaking a conversation, saying that like a customer is not feeling well, and the next time you pick up, you begin by saying how are you feeling now, or I hope you have recovered. So you can use this on over extended periods as well. So again, for example, we had a group that converted with us after a period of about 4 months, because they had a wedding in the family when they were planning, when they had initially registered. When one of the actually participants had initially registered, and so when we got back in touch with them, they didn't really remember who they were speaking to, but once we got into the the conversation of how the wedding was and where did they go for their honeymoon, so the person thought that, yeah, I must have spoken to this person earlier on, and we got into a full-blown conversation from there, and eventually that worked out to be good business for us. So this is basically, being proactive. Why spend money getting back a customer when you can do it for free, basically? The second part is the post-active part, and that is the analytics part, where you go, offline basically, and if you're in a position to create a coding sheet and analyze, who converted and why, you could use a software for that. We have SPSS that's available in the market, but you might need a little bit of background as to how to use that software, which is fairly easy to learn, and it gives you a lot of flexibility in terms of doing traditional statistical analysis and throwing up numbers. People tend to say, numbers never lie. So, but if you're not comfortable with that, or you're not really looking to take the time and effort, simple Microsoft Excel would be able to pivot the parameters. As long as you're capturing the data properly, you're clear about what kind of fields you want to capture, and understand the customers, how they converted, taking a look at how long the sales cycle, what made them click, what made them choose you, where what were the sources or the channels through which you acquired these customers. So then you would know which channels are working for you and which are not, and understanding their motivations, and pick a set of customers who you feel that you would like to engage with at a more deeper level. Aside from just getting insights, there's a lot of other material data that you can pick up. For example, if you were to survey your customer set, and you could pick a decent subset out of that, a simple question like asking them which phone they're all using would lead you to be able to how you would want to take your business further in terms of prioritizing whether all your customers, or maybe a majority of your customers, are on iPhone or Android. So accordingly, you would be able to take a call whether you want to develop the Android app first or the iPhone app first. So basically, all the information that you're able to gather from a customer, and analyze that information could basically would always help in terms of how you take things further. So that's pretty much it in terms of our journey so far, and we would be open to questions.
Thank you, Siddhant and Ashish. It was a really great presentation, I must say. I enjoyed the entire, each slide which you have taken through in this, and sort of drove the specifics of, how one can go about building the lead generation strategy. I think in some of the slides Ashish pointed out, some of the elements may differ from business to business, but by and large, most of what you said should be applicable to a majority of the consumer-facing businesses. As far as I understand, right? So, let's see if we have got questions here. So, everybody, please feel free to send in your questions. I'll pose those questions to our friends here and then get their inputs. So, we're already running out of time. So, probably if you can, share your questions, we can take few. And if there's anything remaining, feel free to send an email to me, and we will take them offline. So. Milind is asking a question about how important offers are to generate leads from an online campaigns. Ashish, you want to take that?
Yeah. So offers, I mean, it would be fair to say that it's common sense that any kind of offer, if it addresses a specific pain point, would generate would be good for generating leads, and not just leads but also in incentivizing conversion. Now the key there is if the offer is actually addressing a pain point. So just to give you an example from our business, like I mentioned, one of the offers that we have, early bird offer. Now that's a clear case where it's a win-win situation with us as well as them, because for us it is critical that during our fixed departures, which are trips that have people coming from different different areas of India and joining together to form a larger group of 10 or 12 people. Now for us, so the advantage that the customer has for a fixed departure trip is that it is, one, they don't have to look for people to accompany them for a trip, and secondly, it is much cheaper than a trip which they would do exclusively with their friends. So these are the two things that benefit customers in fixed departures. For us, we get a larger volume, and we get it's easier for us to organize. Now, when we design an offer for fixed departures, what we do is that we give an early bird offer wherein we allocate certain, out of, let's say, out of 10 slots, we say that 4 slots will be fixed departures. 4 slots will be early bird offers, where we get the same trip at an even further discounted rate of, let's say, 20-25%. So what happens is that people feel that that's a good deal, because clearly it's they're saving a lot of money. And for us, it works out because we are ensuring that this is a confirmed trip. We don't have to cancel the trip in the future. So with this example, I can what I just want to point out is that if there is value in the offer, then it will definitely work to create leads. But somehow, if the offer is just it is just numbers and it doesn't actually address any specific pain point of the customer, then that would not work.
Yeah, thank you, Ashish. I think a good point. I mean, offer is important to generate leads. I mean, whatever the kind it is. First, it has to the more valuable the offer is, the better the chances of you getting a lead or converting them to a customer are there. So, absolutely, I think offers are very, very important from a lead gen standpoint, right? I think there's another query from Ria, and the query is about, what is the ideal percentage of promotional ads budget for, let's say, the offline versus online campaign? I think it would be referring to either your business, or maybe we can talk generally. So what kind of percentage you spend on both the offline and online, if you put them together?
I would be answering this more from our perspective, but again, this is something that is very specific to the type of business that you are doing. You can do very effective offline campaigns. If, say, for example, you were targeting a product that was suitable for school children, you would do really well with a radio campaign during the early morning drive time hour, where both parents are probably driving to work, and that would probably work better than on an online platform. But for us specifically, we have been spoiled right from day one by online. We have not been able to get any when it comes to costs. Nothing is even closely comparable to the costs that you can achieve online, provided, as I said earlier, that your segmentation is correct. So I'll give you a very straight up example. Like when we started our business, we were paying, and the travel space is a very competitive space in terms of bids. for clicks online. And we had actually started out, we were paying 30 rupees at one time per click. And as on date today, we are probably around under 2 rupees per click. So, and that is all just because of, of segmentation that, we've put into place. In terms of dividing the budget, again, as I said, it's more specific towards your product. If I were targeting audiences that were more accessible to me and cost effectively accessible to me on an offline platform, for example, if I were to do a roadshow in a business city, area like in Gurgaon Cyber City, where I know there are about 300,000 people, and I would be willing to spend 1 rupee per person, provided I know that my conversion rates going to be, very high and demand lies there. I would do an offline campaign, but you have to weigh that against the fact that it would cost you around 8 paisa per person to get online. So our preference would always be online, but it's something that you have to weigh out at a personal, industry level as to how you'd like to do it.
Awesome. I am impressed. From 30 to under 2. We need to talk about that. Yeah, that's exceptional. That's exceptional. And we've got one more question, and we'll probably just take 2 more questions here because we're already 5 minutes out of our time. So one question is from Dinto, and is asking what was the most successful channel for getting it. So was it like Facebook or YouTube or Google Ads, or I think you mentioned about StumbleUpon. I think not many people use that, but so in the order of priority, would you sort of say if Facebook was the best, or how would you categorize them?
Right. So I think each channel we saw significant success in each channel, including Facebook, Google, StumbleUpon, but the quality of the leads definitely differed. The kind of click-throughs that we got on Google was in fact higher than what we got on Facebook. But at the same time, because Facebook allows for very precise segmentation, and some of which Siddhant mentioned earlier on, like people whose friends have birthdays, so it gets down to such depth. Therefore, the quality of the leads generated on Facebook has always been better. So we would rate Facebook as the primary source of leads for us, and then it would be followed by Google Search and Google Display Networks. With StumbleUpon, it is more like bringing traffic, bringing good quality traffic as opposed to generating leads. So that's the order of priority that we've experienced.
Okay, got it. Perfect. Yeah, I was expecting that because for your kind of business, Facebook offers significant segmentation capability, which is unmatched by any other advertising platform. So yeah, awesome. And this is one question, and I'll let you answer that. So Aditya from Studio High, Neil from Studio High is asking, which software would you recommend for for all the activities you do? So I don't want to answer that. I want you to do that.
I think it's rather obvious. I'm going to just go out on a limb here right now and tell you why. I don't think this would have been covered otherwise, so it's good that the question came up. It's not just about being able to use the functionality of software, but one of the feelings that, and I'm sure Ashish shares my sentiment here, is that there is a lot of care taken in terms of the fact that I would say LeadSquared is making an effort to ensure that I succeed and provide. I think I have this feeling inside that I can call up LeadSquared and say, look, with this, could you customize this, to suit my particular, challenge that I'm facing? And I am more confident than anything that, the response would be either to ensure that I understand the best way of doing it, or would be taken onto record that, yes, this is a genuine need and needs to be addressed. So I think, I would say more than the software, the customer intimacy factor that we have here is very high. And an example of the webinar which is holding, so, in this case, we're actually presenting, but for the other, 10 webinars that have been before, while we've been customers with it, is something that we use as well ourselves as marketeers to understand different, scenarios in different horizons and different channels that are available. So this is all, that an ecosystem is being created aside from just the software for you to be able to do business well. And I think that is unmatched, at least so far in my experience.
Thank you very much for all the kind and nice words. I've got one more channel for everybody to look at. I'm not sure if it's been experienced, and since you brought upon the topic of stumble upon, so Ashish and Siddhant, if you sort of search on there's a new genre of advertising platforms which has hit the market in the last few years, but is gaining popularity now, is the content advertising platform or native advertising platform. It goes by various names. So it's like StumbleUpon, where you have a content, right, and you can, so they will take your content and take that content to various publisher networks, basically, right? So let's say if you have a piece of blog, right, written, that blog you can take around, they will post it in, let's say, Wall Street Journal or, wherever. So they won't, so this industry is whole starting right now. It's been relatively new, I would say. And I think it will play a huge role because the capability of segmentation will come in. So I think today they are not there yet in terms of segmentation and all that. But as we progress, so that will be a huge way to reach out to the audience. So we probably will come up with a blog article on that at some point, and we'll describe that. But I think that's so one of the players. So I can sort of give a couple of names here. So one of the players is Outbrain, which you can look at, and then there's another player called Taboola. And so this is, since it is a newer genre of advertising platforms, most of the these platform guys are focused on the media spenders who have a lot of ad dollars. So it is not trickled down to the small businesses who can spend a little bit and just see how it works, right? So StumbleUpon, all these guys have prepared the model where they can even accept $100 as a advertising budget. But these are not at that level yet, except probably a couple of them. I think Outbrain gives you the ability to do like a few dollars a day, like $10 a day, kind of a minimum. So that's the only one I think is there. Everybody else is like starts from a very high budget at this point. So yeah, I think you touched upon a good point. So there's a lot a lot of new ways to sort of get this going. So I think I would take a couple of closing comments from both of you, and then we can close the session. I think we're already over by 13 minutes. So yeah, please, Siddhant, Ashish, if you can have the final comments.
Sure. All I can say is that I hope that this session was useful to people, and I hope that we haven't bored you much. But yeah, if there are any other questions, Nilesh, you can send us across over email, and we'll try our best to answer those as well.
Sure.
And the last point that you mentioned was especially, that's something that I didn't know about personally. So thank you for that as well. And yes, Siddhant.
Yeah, thanks so much again. And one thing we had actually forgotten to mention earlier on is, so the Venture Out Challenge is openly offered to all the attendees of today's webinar. We would be happy to part with 50% of our earnings for any attendee today who would like to go up, in the mountains or anywhere on a rafting trip and develop it for us. So that, just as a thank you, that's an offer that's available from our side. So thank you, Nilesh, and thank you to everyone who's attended.
Yeah, thank you very much, both of you, for taking this session. Really appreciate your time and effort in putting this together. And all the audience, thank you very much for joining. We love you guys, and hope you have a good weekend. Thank you all.
Thank you.